I feel great. I mean, nothing could ruin a wonderful day like this.
Hello everyone! You might be wondering what I'm doing in a helicopter. Well, after my last video, I accidentally made enemies of the entirety of the Persona 1 and 2 fandoms. And they may have formed a resistance to keep me from making any more videos about Persona until I play their games.
Yeah, but fuck that!
So instead of giving in to their demands, I decided to take our next challenge off the grid and drop our meddling kids somewhere that the Persona 1 and 2 fans could never find us. Buckle up, folks, grab some sunscreen, a towel, and a bucket of popcorn, because welcome to Persona Island!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Frederick Beach, the coziest coastline that Persona Island has to offer.
Can we please get on with the video now, mate? I didn't spend the last hour setting up your horseshoe for you to waste everybody's time.
Alright, I'm getting to it. So as you guys heard during the landing sequence, for our next installment of the Persona Versus series, we've decided to make the poor bastards tango with the tropics. So as always, let's set the scene. All the main party members from Persona 3, 4, and 5 have been mysteriously kidnapped and dropped onto a deserted island in the middle of the ocean. This was a coordinated effort of some of the most feared antagonists across their stories. The God of Death, your average Redditor, a parakeet, and yours truly. The League of Villains have told all of the kids that they're tired of screwing around, and they've kidnapped all of their leaders. And the last group standing will get their emo friend back and safely return to their town in Japan. So all our funny friends are going to have to make the best of their situation, work together, be resourceful, and find ways to navigate the various challenges and environmental tortures we'll be throwing at them. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves though, we first need to discuss the basics of what the teams look like, and what they're going to work with on the island. Now I know how much we love talking about all the characters on this channel, from the Velvet Room attendants, the dancing girls, and the Yakuza, but I decided this time I'm only going to be throwing in the main party members from the main games. What? No, Idol Girl, what? No. So you can basically expect all the characters present in Persona Q2 to be present here, though I will be throwing in Yoshizawa for the Persona 5 team, mostly because I'm running out of room on the pinboard. As for the resources, I did some light research online of what could traditionally be found on a deserted island. These are the fundamentals of what could be found, but almost everything here they have to harvest and utilize on their own, because they've got nothing but the clothes on their backs. That's right, folks, as per usual, there will be no weapons, no powers, and certainly no chance we'll be talking about Persona Trinity Soul. And as one final note, this is not going to be in a tier list structure like my videos usually are. While it would be easy for me to simply categorize these characters into tiers like dies by day 2 or is sacrificed by their team to a higher power in hopes of getting some food, I think for a challenge as involved as this, it would be a lot more entertaining to follow the groups day by day, assessing their survival strategies and see how their paths inevitably cross, and the bullshit that's gonna ensue because of that. So with all the groundwork sufficiently laid out, let's go ahead and see how everyone is faring on day 1. So a good enough place to start as any is to analyze how each group's initial reactions to the situation would be. Starting with the Persona 3 cast, I'd wager that the group would initially be shocked about the circumstances and the stakes, but it wouldn't take too long before Mitsuru would get a level head and calm the rest of the group down. Akihiko, Junpei, and Shinjiro are sent to gather some materials that they could use to make a hut. Meanwhile, Yukari and Mitsuru are surveying their surroundings to make sure that it's safe. And finally, Ken, Fuka, and Koromaru are left to hold down the fort and watch over Aigis, who, by the way, is currently an unconscious pile of scrap. Since these landlubbers were dropped into the middle of the ocean with no personal belongings, this means that Aigis does not have her charging unit, so the group decides it'll be best to keep her powered off. For the purposes of this challenge, this means that Aigis can only be put into play for 1 day, and after that, it's lights out. Then, jumping over to the P5 cast, while I think they could eventually compose themselves, it maybe takes them around 20 minutes longer than the C's crew. Characters like An and Ryuji would immediately enter a state of panic, while Futaba just passes the fuck out at the thought of missing her League of Legends daily logins. Yusuke is not paying attention to any of this, as he wistfully admires the beauty and wonder of the ocean in this lighting. Yoshizawa is having a panic attack about Futaba, while Makoto and Haru are trying to calm down everyone. Meanwhile, Akechi is prepared to sacrifice just about everyone on his team if it means saving his boyfriend. Like Mitsuru, I believe that Makoto would be the one to take charge of the situation and start divvying out the task to the others, assigning lumber scavenging to Ryuji, Haru, and Yusuke, surveying the island to herself and An, and then finally, Yoshizawa and Morgana are left to tend to the rotting corpse. And kinda no one really knows where Akechi went during all that. Next up is Persona 4, and if you thought it was bad that Persona 5 took 10 minutes, consider the Persona 4 group needs an extra hour. Without Narukami to keep them in line, this group absolutely collapses at the seams. Yeah, okay, maybe Naoto would be the voice of reason, but literally everyone else here is either pissing themselves or already planning on who to eat first. I've always found it so fucking funny that if you were to try to pick the top 3 smartest characters in the Persona 4 cast, that leaves you with basically Naoto, Yosuke, and maybe Rise on a good day. So their chances are not looking too great here. After enough crying, screaming, and prying Chie's jaw off of Yosuke's piss-covered leg, Naoto would take charge and divvy out the responsibilities accordingly, leaving Kanji and Yosuke to gather wood, Rise and Naoto to survey the surroundings, and Teddy and Yukiko to keep Chie from going feral and eating someone. While the kids do their best to play Survivor, now's as good a time as any to go over some attributes and talents that each group has that might play a factor in the challenge. Starting with the Persona 3 cast, between their early lead and their instant win button, you might be thinking they're an early shoo-in to win the competition, but there's an aspect of their team we haven't brought up yet. While it's true they've got a lot going for them, I find it important to mention that the only way to get Shinjiro into this competition, and Lord knows we can't not have Shinjiro, was to take everyone from their narrative arcs prior to October 4th, which means everyone kinda fucking hates each other a little bit. I'm still going to factor in any future feats or general experiences past that date. As far as their interpersonal relationships go, they're pretty much fixed to September. Then for the Persona 4 cast, they're kind of a catch-22 kind of group. While they are the most damaged by the loss of their leader, the worst at prepping any kind of food, and the fact that Naoto is holding this team together with every fiber of her being, and the fact that ChatGPT thinks Yosuke is most likely to drink his piss in a survival scenario. Where was I going with this? There are actually a few benefits I think they have over the other groups. For starters, they're easily the closest group of friends out of the 3 teams here, so I think they're less likely to turn into savages and go all Lord of the Flies immediately. For most of them. And the Seekers of the Truth are the only group in the competition who live out in the countryside, since the Phantom Thieves live in Tokyo and the Seas kids are a bunch of Nepo babies with all their expenses paid living in a multi-story dorm. Yeah, I'm gonna give the Persona 4 cast some extra credit here. And as for the Phantom Thieves, they're kind of just all well-rounded. For every character that I consider dead weight, there's at least one that I feel provides some sort of talent or trick that will help. Like, yeah, An is just kind of filling space, but at least Ryuji's gone fishing once with Joker. Or sure, Yoshizawa's still having a panic attack, but hey, Haru could do some farming shit, right? And yeah, maybe Futaba is... Wait, where's Futaba? It's a few hours later, so let's check back in with the groups and see how they're all doing. Starting off with the Seas crew, I think they were able to find a decent amount of food, but their shelter is going to come up a bit short. I did as much research as I could to try to prove to the contrary, but I don't think any of these private school privateers have any experience with wilderness activities. Sure, Mitsuru might be well read and have basic strategies down, but when it comes to actually assembling a shelter, none of these kids have any prior knowledge to this, leaving their shelter to be mediocre at best. While tensions are high within the group, everyone's a bit too preoccupied to think about anything other than survival. That is, for all but one member of the group, whose fiery passion and drive for vengeance refuses to yield, regardless of the circumstances. While no one in the group is any the wiser of what the boy is thinking, an ominous figure is watching from the shadows, ready to use this information for their own evil deeds. It was a long day for the Seekers of the Truth, but to everyone's surprise, they were able to set up a very respectable camp. This was made possible by the majority of the members being present on the school camping trip, but also the fact that Naoto seems to express the fundamentals of establishing shelter in her 3rd semester cabin scene, a point brought up by none other than 5XA Bot, thus making them the Fredhead of the day. If you didn't already know, I like to read the comments on my videos and community polls, and try to give a shout out to 1 or 2 of my fans along the way. So consider subscribing and engaging with the channel. You could even be added to the Hall of Fredrick. But in all seriousness, I'm having a great time making this stupid brain rot Persona content, and I've got a lot more of it planned and on the way. So if you'd like to support me, and in turn more of these types of videos, please consider subscribing and following my socials. It honestly helps us out a lot more than you'd think. Where were we? Oh yeah, the Persona 4 gang. I was about to talk about their food supply. As the sun starts to set on Persona Island, the Phantom Thieves find that they did pretty decent for themselves. Their campsite was sufficient enough via the efforts of Makoto's intelligence and the scavenging team's diligent work. However, there are two pressing matters that are becoming apparent. The first of which is the disappearance of Futaba, who had snuck off at some point during the construction of the camp and was the only person they cared about going missing. Then there was a matter of food. Because of how much work the team was putting into the camp, they hadn't found more than maybe a couple of coconuts. But luckily, both of those problems were about to disappear. Kechi returns to camp and informs the group that he spent the day meticulously exploring the island, his keen eyes scanning the dense foliage and rocky shores for any useful resources, while he took deep. As the sun rises on Persona Island, our happy group of campers are up bright and early. While each group was able to get past their first day mostly unscathed, all the groups were suffering from a very similar set of issues. Those being a lack of tools, a lack of water, and in some groups' cases, a lack of Redditors. Starting off the day though, let's see how the C's group are doing. The C's group are quick to divvy out their tasks. Junpei volunteers to try to make some spears, while Akihiko tells the group that he's going to hunt down some food on his own, with Koromaru tagging along with him. Unsatisfied with their current campsite, Mitsuru vows to spend the rest of the day reinforcing their structures, while Shinjiro volunteers to help. As for the rest of the group, Yukari offers to help Junpei, primarily by verbally berating him. Ken also decides to help out with this, seemingly having an invested interest in getting his spear for some reason. Finally, Fuka decides to hang around camp, helping out anyone she can, but ultimately just looking out over Aigis. Yeah, this is gonna kinda become the norm for Fuka. Then on the other side of the island, once the gang finishes tying Chie to a tree, they start getting to work. Kanji, Naoto, and Yosuke spend the day harvesting materials and tinkering to attempt to make some tools. Then Yukiko and Rise are tasked to go find some water, while Teddy just sits on the beach and looks out at the ocean. Lovely. Then finally, the Phantom Thieves are up and at 'em, and they've got a lot of ground to cover. First off, Yoshizawa and Yusuke are tasked to go searching the jungle for signs of Futaba's whereabouts, while Haru and Makoto try to find some plants that they might be able to make a garden with. That leaves Morgana and Ryuji in charge of crafting tools and weapons, and on to, maybe go find a water source. Honestly, Anna's just kinda here. Rise and Yukiko look around the jungle for quite a long time trying to find a fresh source of water to bring back to the group. Luckily for Rise, she's actually able to track down the only water supply on the island. But when she does, she hears some horrific screaming not far from her. As she curiously peeks through the bushes, she sees none other than a motherfucking bear! That's right! It's a bear trilogy, motherfucker! You didn't really think this was gonna be a JoeFredrick Persona video without me needlessly throwing in a bear into the competition, did you? Jesus Christ, what is wrong with you? Do you realize just how expensive it was to get that bad boy through customs? Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, Rise. So looking forward in absolute terror, Rise sees a redheaded girl getting absolutely mauled to death by a wild grizzly bear, while some slender guy is eagerly painting on a rock with wet mud, blissfully unaware of what's happening. As she realizes the danger of the situation, she goes to take a step back before a spine-chilling sound is heard. Yukiko, in a sick, warped version of the word called humor, starts breaking into laughter at how unaware Yusuke is, thus causing the bear to notice the two girls and start hurtling towards them. Rise is able to compose herself enough to hightail it out of there, but Yukiko, lost in her funnies, is too out of breath to make a break for it, and just as the bear finishes up his meal from the Amagi Inn, and Yusuke is about to be scarfed up, he is luckily yoinked into cover by none other than Akechi. Yusuke is grateful for his assistance, but Akechi, now aware of the wild beast safeguarding the only water supply on the island, has other plans in mind. Oh yeah, also the bear ate on before all of them. Well, that certainly was an eventful day. So let's go ahead and see how everybody's goals panned out. Out of the characters who traveled into the jungle in pursuit of food or water, I'd say that the best thing to come out of all of this is that the casts of 4 and 5 now know that they have to kill a grizzly bear in hopes of basic hydration. And I guess Akihiko got some cardio in. Honestly, I think he got too distracted with working out to remember he was looking for water. Then taking this group by group, we'll say that the Persona 3 cast reinforced their campsite from a D- to maybe a C grade quality. They were also able to make 2 decent quality spears to be used for hunting and self-defense. Then the June S gamers didn't fare too terribly either. Aside from, they were able to make a handful of quality spears and a fishing rod. Between Naoto's crafting experience with making her own tools and Kanji working at a textile shop, they actually had some pretty decent crafting experience under their belt. Just like the Phantom Thieves. Morgana is actually helpful for once in one of these goddamn videos. As long as he's able to give instructions to somebody, he's able to guide them to make a variety of helpful trinkets. Mostly bombs and lockpicks, but I'm sure some of that knowledge is going to be more applicable to this category than, I don't know, Junpei's baseball skills? I'd say they were able to make 1 spear and a fishing rod. Can't imagine why Morgana had invested interest in catching fish. Then finally, Haru and Makoto were able to find enough materials to create that garden we were talking about. Just as everybody's about to reconvene and discuss their next course of action, a voice is heard through a large megaphone over the entire island. It's my voice.
Hey! I'm getting bored over here! Each team has 20 minutes to vote someone off the island!
Well, while we let the teams chat amongst themselves to surely come to a civil and rational decision, why don't we take this moment to remind you guys to consider engaging with the channel. Oh wait, I've already done this. But I do need to take just a quick moment to do a little bit of shilling. Timestamp is on the screen of when to click to just get past all of this, but please don't, this is really important. As you guys know, the channel in its current state is pretty small, and I don't actually do any of the editing around here. Don't get me wrong, I do a lot of the directing and writing and, you know, come up with the funnies, but if you're familiar around here, you know that this is a big operation. For the longest time, it was just Adam, but in the last video, I hired this new guy, Kyle.
That's still not mine.
And both of them have been incredibly patient with me trying to essentially give them a payroll while also DoorDashing my entire fucking life to make money. And with just how good some of these latest videos have turned out, I really want to be able to support them more than I have been. So, even though it might be a little bit early, we decided to make a Patreon. I won't go too hard on the sell here, I'll maybe make an announcement post somewhere else, but there's some pretty cool rewards on there. All the typical YouTuber stuff you would expect, from your name at the end of videos, behind the scenes, exclusive content, that's all there. And if you watch me mainly for my Persona tier lists, there's going to be an actual genuine my feelings on the characters tier list on there. But there's also some more interesting stuff. At some of the higher tiers, not only will I pick some fans to be in videos as cameos, but also you're gonna get some actual physical stuff. This might not be very known about me at this point, but before I was a YouTuber, I actually was an author. I am the lead developer at Fabletop Productions. I've made a handful of tabletop RPGs such as The Dread of Night and the currently in development Agents of Fate. Again, I won't waste your time about it here, but at the right tier, not only will you get physical and digital versions of all my books, but you'll also get any future updates. So if you were to pledge into that tier on the day this video is uploaded, you will get immediately sent both a physical and digital copy of The Dread of Night and an early access preview of Agents of Fate. Honestly, I knew I was going to feel weird recording this bit because I don't really like to be the person to be like, hey, give me money, buy my shit. But almost all of the proceeds that are going to be made on this Patreon are going to go to the editing team. They just seriously deserve so much. Like, have you seen some of the animations in this video or any of the previous? They're insane. So if you want to support me and support the team, please consider checking it out. I know I hyped up some of the highest tiers, but I tried to make as much of this shit that you would be interested in as possible at the $5 tier. But that's enough shilling for the video. Hey, are you back? Thanks for clicking on the timestamp. Let's get right back in to the Funny Island shenanigans. Let's go ahead and see how the votes turned out. Starting off with the Persona 3 cast, this could go any way. Sure, there have been some members who haven't had a chance to shine yet, like Fuka or Yukari, or characters fucking off for the entire day, like Akihiko. But remember that these characters canonically have not resolved a lot of their issues yet, so that could sway things. But without further ado, let's take a look. It was a tough call, but the votes did unfortunately swing towards Junpei. But he won't be the only one boarding the dock of shame alone tonight. So next up are the country gamers. And wow, there's not too many options it could be here, huh? While their choices are a feral animal or a perverted plushie, let's just go ahead and see where this one goes.
6、3、2
Jesus Christ! I mean, I was kind of afraid that I was overestimating this here, so I ran a poll and holy shit, I super was not. Get that bear on the boat, stat! Then finally, you'd be hard-pressed to find an argument for the other group struggling quite as bad as the Phantom Thieves did today. Not only did they lose 2 members in cold blood, but they also still have no idea where Futaba went. Who's to say how the votes are going to go tonight? Yeah, okay, that's to be expected. You killed 2 of your team members' parents, and oh, you're suddenly labeled for life. I can't say this was the trio of characters I imagined, but oh well. As much as it pains me to say, have a catchy board, the Dock of Shame. Hey, wait, where the fuck is he?
Mate, what do we do now?
Relax, it's no big deal. It says here in the rulebook that if someone is not present to be voted off, then you just kind of pick the dude with the second most amount of votes.
That seems incredibly unfair.
Life is unfair. At least here in the States, you Brit.
You really want to go there now? After all I've done?
I think I do want to do that. What was that? So as the 3 contestants slowly drift afloat into the ocean, their ship rigged to the brim with explosions, as his final sight, Junpei notices Teddy slump over as his head plops off into the briny deep, revealing that Teddy has not been in his costume this entire time. It's the start of day 3, and morale could not be lower. Now that all the groups know they could be forced to sacrifice one of their own at the end of each day, those seeds of tension between some of the members are only getting nurtured further. To make matters worse, we are now on day 3 of no actual water. So the groups are going to have to do something about the bear in the woods, and fast. While some of you might be worried for the Seas team, as they're the only ones at this point to not know about the water, something interesting happens at the start of the day. As Mitsuru is divvying out the tasks to the rest of her team, a figure approaches their camp. Out comes Zest Fest Overload, Mr. Akechi himself. While the group is initially on guard at this, Akechi greets them with kindness and tells them that he's unarmed and simply wishes to share knowledge. The team is skeptical, but ultimately allows him to talk. He ends up informing the group that there is water in the middle of the woods, but a wild bear is guarding it, and gives them instructions on where to find it. The group is of course grateful for this information, but they ask him his motives. Akechi responds with a smile and informs them that he only wishes for the mutual survival of all the contestants. While the answer is good enough for most of the crew, some aren't so easily convinced. Not wanting to overstay his welcome, with the information imparted, he makes his leave. After he does, the group discusses the new information they just got. While some of the members bring up that this could be a trap, they ultimately decide that they don't really have any other choice but to pursue the lead. With this in mind, the group sends Akihiko into the jungle to take on the bear, leaving Yukari and Shinji to try to gather food, Mitsuru to gather intel on the other groups, Fuka to watch over Aigis, and Ken, he's probably doing something helpful somewhere, right? Meanwhile, back with the Persona 4 team, or what's left of them, they're absolutely fucked. The group had woken up to the unfortunate news that somebody had cut Chie free from her restraints, effectively making them a team of 4. Yosuke is the first to bring up the possibility of going on the offensive. They're dropping like flies, and if they don't take the initiative soon, they could easily be snuffed out by one of the other teams any day now. While Naoto follows his logic, she reminds him that there is a very good chance that they have the fewest members out of any group at this point, so they can't start acting rash. She suggests that they split their efforts for the day looking for Chie and trying to gather information on the other teams. The group agrees, leaving Naoto and Yosuke to spy on the other groups, Rise to look for Chie, and Kanji to try to sneak some water. As for the thieves, while the P4 group has the fewest members at this point, they've lost the most amount of team members. They've either wandered off, been brutally murdered, shipped to sea, or willingly just twinked off elsewhere. And by day 3, as much as it pains Makoto to say this, looking for Futaba at this point is probably a lost cause. Fuck! Haru then adds that now that they could be forced to vote one of each other off at any given moment, this is no longer a matter of surviving on the island. It's a matter of outliving their opponents. None of the group likes that revelation, but they know at the end of the day that Haru is probably right, and they need to start preparing to face off against some of the other teams. For their sakes and Joker's, the group decides that Makoto will attempt to get some water without alerting the bear, while Haru and Morgana attempt to gain information on the other groups, leaving Yusuke with the responsibility of defending their camp. With all those actions locked in, we have 3 interactions today to discuss. Finally, these killjoys might start killing each other! Starting us off at the water source, Makoto makes her way to the scene, where she sees a loud, muscular guy squaring off against the bear to surprisingly decent results. belts? Seeing this as an opportunity to get some water, she starts making her way towards the stream as quietly as possible. Meanwhile, things aren't looking so great for our blonde friend, as the bear seems to be getting the better of him. Just as it looks like Kanji's about to lose the match, as the bear is composing itself, Akihiko helps Kanji up and offers to lend him a hand in the fight. Kanji agrees, and the two of them absolutely decimate the bear. After a harrowing fight between the three of them that I can't afford to pay Adam to animate, the bear goes down for good. Akihiko tells Kanji that while they're supposed to be competing, he doesn't want to have any more confrontation where it can be avoided. So he proposes that the two of them walk away unscathed, so long as Kanji agrees to let Akihiko take the bear. The blonde boy agrees, grateful that the boxer probably just saved his life, and they both wish each other good luck in the trials to come. Though that's not to say that everyone made it out of this situation unharmed. We then cut back to the beach, as quite a few people are spending the day trying to gather information on one another. This is going to lead into a few different interactions. First off, while Naoto is on her way to spy on the Persona 3 team, she quickly tucks herself behind a tree and notices a cat being chased around by a redheaded woman. Naoto considers intervening, but it isn't long before Mitsuru gets a hold of Morgana. Naoto wonders if that cat is an ally of one of the other teams, and she considers what she might be able to do with that information. However, we can't dawdle on that shit for too long, because there is actual combat happening on the other side of the island. As Yosuke makes his way to learn more about the other team, he crosses paths with a friendly-looking girl. He thinks this might be an opportunity to share some details and potentially teaming up, but Haru has other plans in mind. As she swiftly lunges at Yosuke, sparking an intense spear match. As they trade blows, Yosuke does his best to use his agility to outmaneuver her attacks, but she gets one good hit in, and with her overwhelming strength, splits Yosuke's spear in half. While this would normally be a deal breaker, what Haru doesn't know is that she just accidentally gave Yosuke weapons he is more adept with. But before we can find out who wins, there's one last event we have to tune in on. As Shinjiro is scavenging the forest for materials, he notices another student looking around the forest as well. He hesitates on what to do, but as he does this, something snatches the girl away in the blink of an eye. By the time he looks back and realizes she's gone, he's decided it's best not to intervene and focus on the task at hand, unaware of the horrors taking place beneath the soil he stands on. Oh yeah, Haru murdered Yosuke. Boy howdy, that day was something, huh? So let's see how our groups are standing. The C's crew group up with a massive win under their belts. Not only did they capture one of the Phantom Thieves as bargaining material, but they also have an entire bear's worth of food. Some estimates online say that a single bear could feed up to 4 to 6 people. So if you factor in that they only need to feed 5 young adults, a dog, and 1 child, they could easily ration this meat from the bear for maybe 2 to 3 days. Not only that, but they managed to get some water. However, Ken doesn't return with the rest of the group, and that is concerning. Meanwhile, the other two teams continue to struggle. Kanji and Naoto return to find only themselves, with a shocking lack of Yosuke and Rise. And it's not too dissimilar for the Phantom Thieves, as Haru returns to only find Yusuke, with their only accomplishment of the day being a bloody pair of Beats headphones, no less. That is, until a few unsuspected faces present themselves to the two. It's none other than Akechi, Ken, and a feral Chie. Haru and Yusuke are immediately on guard by this, but Akechi catches them up. He tells the two that he spent the past few days on the island analyzing the threats, and he's come to the conclusion that the Persona 3 team were easily the biggest threats they had to deal with, and he was doing his best to gather allies that they desperately would need to survive. He also informs them that they have not only captured Morgana, but they had brutally murdered Makoto over a water dispute. Of course, this is a lie. He was responsible for killing Makoto. He only did this so he could pin the blame on the Persona 3 team, doing so to give the motivation to the other Phantom Thieves. Also, Makoto was the voice of reason, so as soon as she was out, he felt like he could manipulate the others. Yusuke asks for more details on who the other two are, and he tells them that Ken is the youngest member of the C's team. He informs the group that he overheard them talking about voting him off tonight, since he's the youngest and provides the least to the group. Again, this is another lie that he told Ken to convince him to work with him. He also was the shadowy figure watching him a day or two ago, and was able to tell a bloody vengeance when he sees it, taking that opportunity to convince Ken that he'll give him the chance to kill Shinjiro, as long as he works with him. As for Chie, he said he found her gnawing on a rock, and promised her some tasty bear meat if he went along with his plan. At this point, Ken chimes in and tells them that he doesn't want to be involved in harming anyone other than Shinjiro, but if the others intend on making an attack, they're going to have to get around Aigis, informing them that she's a very powerful combat robot that they've been saving in case of an emergency. Goro then adds that there's another 5 teammates that he could recruit towards the cause, but that's gonna have to wait until morning. He asks Yusuke and Haru if they're in or if they're against him, and not having many other choices, the two begrudgingly agree, thus adding Akechi, Chie, and Ken to the Persona 5 team. Given how the Persona 4 and 5 teams are hanging on by a thread, tonight's elimination, I'm only gonna make the Persona 3 cast endure. You can call me biased, but when you consider the current standings, this is objectively the most fair way I can handle this. So let's go ahead and see the results. It is undoubtedly the saddest loss Persona Island has had to suffer thus far, but unfortunately, everyone's favorite pupper just made the most sense to vote off at this point. Now that hunting for food and water is no longer a hassle, it just unfortunately was the right decision. While Shinjiro doesn't take this lying down and offers himself as a sacrifice, this ain't Hunger Games, bitch! Get him out of here! Here we are, folks, day 4, and oh boy, is it gonna be a doozy. Starting with the Persona 3 team, Shinjiro and Yukari are spending the day trying to preserve what they can of the meat, while Mitsuru and Akihiko interrogate Morgana, who refuses to share any information with them. While they are not fond of torture, they decide to wait till he gets hungry, instructing Fuka to try fishing while keeping an eye out for Aigis. Mitsuru will keep trying to interrogate the cat, but Akihiko volunteers to go searching for Ken, getting worried about his absence at this point. As for Kanji and Naoto, they decide to go looking for one of their, honestly, many missing allies at this point, obviously because they need to recover some team members, and because Kanji's having trouble keeping his shit together spending so much time alone with Naoto. Then, for the Phantom Thief, no, that name feels wrong at this point. As for Team Akechi, Yusuke asks Pancake Boy just how he intends to get 5 more allies. After he finishes feeding the dog, he tells them that the rest of Chie's team doesn't have much else of a choice but to join at this point, but they're going to need convincing from someone they trust. Luckily for him, he knows where 2 of their missing party members went, and if they rescue them, surely they'll put in a good word for them out of gratitude. All he needs to make the deal are Yosuke's bloody headphones. In the meantime though, Akechi tasks
Yusuke
and Haru with the responsibility of creating a giant shield, while also watching out over Chie. In the meantime, he's gonna take Ken and go retrieve the others. As Akechi and Ken are making their way into the jungle, Goro quickly pulls Ken behind cover, as they see Akihiko looking around and calling out for the boy. This makes Amada second guess his decisions, but Akechi quickly informs him that he saw them vote off the dog last night, and they're probably only looking for him just so they have someone to vote off tonight. As the two ponder on what to do, Akechi tells Ken that he needs to go back with Akihiko. It's the only way they're going to divert their suspicions. All Ken needs to do is tell them that he had heat stroke yesterday, passed out, and spent the rest of the day trying to find his way back to camp. He then adds that it will be helpful having an inside man, and assures him not to worry because him and the rest of the team will be back for him before the elimination. With his silver tongue convincing him, Ken agrees and runs out to Akihiko. The two of them head back towards the Seas camp. Meanwhile, the detective prince realizes that this whole operation is going to be a gamble on if Ken stays loyal, but he couldn't risk being spotted now. He presses on towards the location of the supposed missing party members. As Haru and Yusuke are slaving away at a particularly specific shield design, Akihiko and Ken return to camp. The group quickly asks the boy where he went, with him reciting the answers Akechi prepared for him. This convinces almost everyone, but Shinjiro isn't buying it, but chooses not to say anything for the time being. As it starts to get later in the day, and Morgana is getting hungrier and hungrier, Fuka manages to catch a single fish, which gets Makoto's mouth water. Wait, I wrote Makoto, that's supposed to say Morgana. Meanwhile, we find Akechi on an uncharted side of the beach, as he rediscovers a little cave. As he follows the stream down the path, he comes to a small little alcove, where he finds none other than Teddy and Rise, who were forced to play card games made out of seaweed and mud by none other than Futaba Sakura. That's right, Her lack of devices, games, and the harsh rays of the sun drove her gamer crazy, as she's been forcing Rise and Teddy to play whatever sick, twisted games this little gremlin can come up with. The two look to Akechi, hopeful that he's there to rescue them. Futaba, noticing him now, stands up proudly on the table, prepared to make him one of the contestants in her funny game. Haru and Yusuke are pleasantly surprised to see just before sunset, Akechi returns with not only an unconscious Futaba, alongside Rise, Teddy, and get this, Naoto and Kanji. On his way back, he ran into the two of them and used the bloody headphones to frame the C's crew for his murder. So between that and Rise and Teddy's gratitude, they decided it was best to join Team Akechi to take down C's. Yusuke and Haru are happy to get the help from just about anyone at this point, and to see the return of their friend. Haru takes Futaba to lay her down somewhere safe to recover, while also tying her leg to a tree. Yusuke then presents Akechi with the makeshift shield.
That conveniently looks like a chair and we're not gonna question it for the rest of the video.
Which Akechi then gives to Kanji. With that, he huddles the group together, and him and Naoto devise the plan. Wait a minute, Teddy was supposed to be voted off, and unlike Akechi, we didn't offer someone up as a tribute. So, as the day comes to a close, the C's team are winding down and eating dinner, as we cut to a very annoyed looking Mitsuru, who only just found out that Morgana has no clue what's going on with his team. The most information he could provide was diatribes worth of lore about mementos and palaces and society, man. Meanwhile, Ken and Shinjiro are sitting next to each other eating dinner a little bit away from the rest of the group. Shinji puts it bluntly, in that he knows what Ken is trying to do. Amada tries to play dumb, but Shinjiro doesn't buy it, and tells him that he's not going to stop him in his goal to kill him. He's accepted his fate a long time ago, and if he thinks it will keep him alive any longer, then so be it. This makes Ken hesitate for a moment and wonders what he should do. But not before long, a cavalcade of depressed teens jumps out of the woods and rushes them down. Being put on immediate guard, the C's team scramble to get into battle. Mitsuru yells at Fuka to activate Aigis as she grabs her weapon and starts sparring with Haru. This causes Fuka to jump to attention and start rushing towards Aigis. But she's very quickly intercepted by Rise, as they get into a comical cartoon dust cloud scuffle. Akihiko then goes to rush to her aid, but is lunged at by Kanji. It's a shame they couldn't work things out. As Akechi makes a beeline for Aigis, he sees Yukari attempting to chase after him. All Akechi has to do is whistle as Chie comes jumping out of the brush and starts mauling her to death. As it seems like all is going according to plan, Akechi is shocked to find his path blocked by not only Shinjiro, but Ken as well, who just so happened to have a change of heart. Goro does his best to negotiate with Ken, but the pureness of his heart and the kindness of Shinji's words knocked him back into his senses, and he refuses to turn on his friends. Akechi looks behind him and signals for Naoto to move towards Aigis while he distracts the two. It's all coming down to the wire, folks! As Haru does her best to overpower Mitsuru with raw strength, her tactician intelligence and years of training are just too much for the violent flute to handle, and ultimately strikes her down, scoring 1 point for Team C's. But the lead isn't held for long, as Chie just absolutely brutalizes Yukari in a bloody display. Honestly, you know what? Cut the cameras. I don't even think we can show this. Then there's Rise and Fuka, who are honestly fighting, but it doesn't really seem to be escalating towards any kind of conclusion anytime soon. Where the real fight is at is the absolute slugfest happening between Kanji and Akihiko. Between the two of them operating their weapons of choice, it's an absolute brawl, where neither of them are showing any signs of slowing down. As Akechi is doing his damnedest to dance around both Ken and Shinjiro, someone screams out and grabs everyone's attention. Everyone stops what they're doing and turns to look to see none other than Morgana stand up on a rock and proclaim for all to hear,
Guys! What are we doing? We're all Persona users here. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be working together to try to take down whoever put us here. Let's stop this worthless slaughtering and make a change. That's what our leaders would want, right? So, who's with me? No.
Mitsuru got to Aigis while he was talking. As the momentum shifts into the Persona 3 team's favor with Aigis officially put into play, Akechi shouts to the rest of the team to instigate Plan B. As he makes the call, Yusuke swiftly jumps out of his hiding place at Akihiko, managing to get a decent cutoff with his knife, giving Kanji the opportunity he needs to change targets. The biker does his best to rush at Aigis as she pelts down his riot shield, but it's durable enough for him to tackle her to the ground, but not without suffering a few bullet wounds on the way. As he starts to wail on her with all his might, Mitsuru attempts to go for a lethal blow on Kanji, but Naoto reveals herself, disarming Mitsuru and putting her on the defensive. As Akechi honestly continues to just get overwhelmed by Shinjiro and Ken, he desperately screams out for Chie, hoping she'll stop eating the competition and come help him. What Akechi didn't notice though is that in the time she finished murdering Yukari, she also Tasmanian deviled both Rise and Fuka. It's in this time, though, that Akihiko lands the killing blow on Yusuke. And in that moment, a stray bullet from Aigis hits Chie. Thank fucking God, she was just kind of a problem throughout this whole experience. It looks like Akechi, Naoto, and Kanji are about to be put down once and for all. But a loud bell is heard across the island. Oh yeah, that's me again. Give me a second.
All right, everyone, calm your shit.
I just got word from the parakeet that while it would be fun to
Watch you all murder each other till there's only one of you standing.
we've decided getting the total number of survivors equal to the average Persona team in quantity is gonna be enough grounds for success.
So congratulations, you all won at horrifying costs, but hey, you still won. Adam, go ahead and give them the express tickets back home. Same for their leaders.
I think I might have gotten carried away in this one, huh? All right, in all honesty, this topic could have gone like 85 different ways depending on how you looked at it. But since Adam wrote off alternate timelines from videos, I decided to just pick one, stick with it, and ride this baby out till the very end. If your brain has trouble comprehending data outside of a tier list like mine does, here's one for the hell of it. It's pretty easy to tell that even though we did call the competition before it was one team standing, the Persona 3 team was gonna walk away with this one kind of no matter what. Even if we factor in their general lack of outdoor experience, make their interpersonal relationships weaker, and if I just removed Aigis from the equation entirely, they're just the most well-rounded group of characters in regards to general competence. This isn't me saying they're my favorites. You think I'm brave enough to share my Persona character tier list on the internet? You gotta join my Patreon to see that! They just had the least amount of hindrances on their team. If your two weakest members are a very competent fighter and a dog, and both of them still have more going for them than half of the Persona 4 team does, that kind of does all the speaking it needs to. But overall, I think we all learned a little bit about ourselves here today. I learned that I desperately need to seek medical attention for my brain concocting these scenarios. And I think you all learned something too. Why don't you go ahead and tell me in the comments what you learned from this video? I'll be sure to read each and every one of them and let you know what I think.
Joe, I hate to interrupt your engagement farming, but I really think we need to get out of here.
Come on, man. I was just starting to get to the fun part.
I understand that, I truly do, but remember the fire from earlier?
The one you told me you'd take care of for the past 5 days. That fire?
Yeah, well, it's sort of spiraled out of control.
What are you talking about? Everything looks fine. Okay, to the helicopter!
All right, let's get this bird in the air. Buddy, what the hell is that in your hand?
When are we gonna catch a break around here?